to order the Courts and Public Safety Committee for the Alpena County Board of Commissioners. We're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so first thing I'm looking for is a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, I have a motion by John Kozlowski, support by Commissioner Lay. Next, we have Janelle Mott, our juvenile officer, with our Child Care Fund monthly report to receive and file. Good afternoon.
Hi. For March 2024, we had revenue in the amount of $292,073.54. Expenditures totaling $176,993.57. And the expenditures include the return of that blended funding to the sheriff's office of $112,500. Historically, that had been $75,000, but when the state bumped my reimbursement up to 75%, I gave all of the rest to the sheriff's office. So they got somewhat enough to, maybe buy some uniforms this year. But I think that's another great deal for the county. Cash balance at the end of March was $150,179.40.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to receive and file her report.
What if we had questions?
You are welcome to add any questions.
No, I don't have any.
Are you sure? Because you always have a question.
I know he does.
I was prepared today. There's
Were you?
a question.
Where's the institutional care? Where do you keep those people?
Well, we keep them all over. And right now we have 2 kids in a place called Pineview Homes downstate. But we also utilize some county facilities, Sioux Tribe, Secure Detention, Midland County, Saginaw County.
And intensive probation, what does that include?
That is all of our in-home care components. So our pivot program that we run, probation, staffing, wages and fringes, drug testing, counseling services, anything, transportation. Thunder Bay Transportation drives a lot of our kids around. Anything that we utilize in county to treat youth on probation so we don't have to place them in the institutional care. And everything in the intensive probation line item is reimbursed at 75%. Institutional care is 50%.
That's all the questions I have.
Right, that was a good question.
I'm good, thanks.
You're good? Okay, so I'll be looking for a motion to receive and file.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so next on our agenda, we have Fire Chief Rob Edmonds. The floor is yours.
The floor is fine, huh? All right. Thank you for having me this afternoon. So I actually are here with 2 requests for you guys. First one's on the ambulance purchase authorization request. Under the provisions of the ambulance service agreement, amendment 1, section 6, ambulances, medical equipment and ambulances outlined to be ordered in 2024 with an additional cost to outfit with a striker power load lift system and Power Pro cot for patient care transport. One of the challenges to this process is availability and build times. The traditional means to make this happen with a sealed competitive bid process pushes the timeline out 24 to 36 months as it is now considered a quote custom build. Vendors are currently building stock line trucks is what they call them that are available on a first come first served basis, requiring a deposit to claim the apparatus. These are standard ambulances with few options to customize layouts of the cabinetry, driver's compartment and or patient compartment, etc. In researching availability to purchase purchase price to fit our needs, these line trucks are ranging anywhere from $274,000 to $290,000, plus an additional $76,000 for the striker power load and cot lift system, which is in turn pushing the cost of a new ambulance to around $350,000 to $366,000, plus a radio outfitting cost of approximately $4,500 for a new dual head 800 megahertz radio for communications to the hospital and dispatch. In looking to purchase a new ambulance in this method, it restricts us to finding what is first available and through a sole source vendor. I'm requesting authorization to secure a new ambulance purchase, striker power load cot lift system and 800 megahertz dual head radio system not to exceed a total cost of $400,000 or less on a first available basis. The anticipated delivery of the new ambulance utilizing this method would be late 2024 to middle 2025. We have, to go along with this, we have researched a couple of the ambulance companies, which I do have those with me. That's where we got the prices from. They're very similar in builds, just a different manufacturer. So really, we don't know what the price is until we give them an okay that, yeah, we want one of your line trucks. If we decide to go the custom build method, and we actually do a spec truck where we put out the spec as to what we want, they said we're gonna add anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 to it, and we're gonna add 24 to 36 months on the build time. One of the questions I know John always asks is, what about mileage on our current trucks? So just to give you a little detail on the trucks that we have right now. The last ambulance that we just bought, which was a township truck that we bought used from them back in 2023, I believe it was. It has 40,491 miles on it. Two city-owned vehicles that we have, one has 184,084 miles, the other one has 135,490 miles. The other three ambulances, which are county-owned, 97,502 miles, 196,538 miles, and 186,979 miles. So we're getting some high mileage on the vehicles that we do have. So call volume's not going up, it's actually going up, not going down. I think last year we ended the year with about 4,600 calls for the year.
So what do you do for mileage per year, would you guesstimate?
Fluctuates because we try and rotate rigs in and out. So to give you a good, what we do, I could.
Ballpark, is it like 30,000, you think, or
Probably a little higher,
higher than that?
I'm thinking, so. We do try and rotate the trucks, so obviously we're trying to, I don't want to say evenly wear them, but if we don't run them, then we run into mechanical issues with them, with brakes and that type of stuff, just because if they're sitting,
Do they use brakes?
not very often, they come in hot on two wheels.
Yeah,
What brand do you get when you just get what, you get Fords or Chevrolets or?
Most of them are built on either a Ford or a Chevy cabin chassis.
Mhm.
That's kind of standard.
Yeah.
And not many of them are being built on a Dodge.
Yeah.
Or a Chrysler product. So generally for the ambulance company, because of the upfit packages that they have, it's usually a Ford. Some people are switching over to Chevys. Most manufacturers are switching away from diesel. Because the emissions on diesel drives the cost up. You're gonna add another 30 to 40,000 just because of the emission stuff that we have to have on it as a requirement.
What's the mile like on an ambulance?
Depends. So the one ambulance that we have, which was a city-owned rig to do transfers, that one actually had an engine problem. We got about, I want to say we got about 160,000 miles on it, and then we re-chassied it. And since we did that one, we have 135,000 miles on it. On that one. We normally 200,000 miles. I would expect that that's going to be a normal for us.
That's about the end of the road.
It's about the end of the road or getting pretty close.
Okay.
So all the rigs we have now are in decent shape. So I wouldn't say that, yeah, you got one of them that's at 196,000 miles. I don't see it dying in a year or two. But we also don't want to wait to that point where we don't have that rig.
Yeah, I understand that.
Trying to be proactive in it, I guess you could say.
Do we normally get bids from different vendors? Like truly, like, okay,
Pre-COVID, yes.
Okay.
That was really the last time that we had bought an ambulance was probably prior to 2020. I'd have to look at the ages of the rigs. But at that point, we would get 3 competitive bids. The problem is there really isn't that option right now. So
why is that?
they can't keep up on the demands.
Okay.
So we can get 3 bids of like vehicles that are available on a first come, first serve, but you're not going to compare apples to apples. So, because they have different features that might come standard on them that the other one doesn't. I'd be more than willing to do that. I have no problem with us looking at I don't want to say the cheaper option, but these rigs are all built to the same specifications. It's a matter of what they have on them for bells and whistles, and most of them aren't putting on bells and whistles like they used to because nobody's willing to pay the money for the extra amenities to it.
Yeah, it's not so much the cheaper option, but I'd be curious, different options with bells and whistles, like what would help the staff out more?
So when we looked at this, Tim Slosser's been involved in our ambulance purchases probably for the last, I'm gonna say 15 years, and he's due to retire in July.
Okay.
He said the rigs that we're currently looking at fit our needs within our operation as to what we do now with pre-hospital EMS. We don't use van style ambulances for a reason. They're quite a bit cheaper. They're no fun to work out of. It's basically like trying to work out of a coffin. because there literally is no room.
Is it like a minivan style?
Sure is, not much bigger. You see my Michigan trucks, they have one or two of them that are in that van style.
I've seen
Give you
those.
access to one side of the patient, where our box rigs, we basically have 300.
Right, you need a box for a call.
If we go much bigger, they have the heavy duty ambulances, but you're gonna add another 200,000. We don't have a need for it.
Okay,
So for us, what we're actually looking at is what's called a type 3 or a mod. It's a box style ambulance, so it gives us the room that we need to perform good patient care in it.
okay. Any other comment?
The only, I did have some things that I wanted to look at, and I was wondering if we could possibly hold this off for a month. Would that be a problem for you?
No, all I'm looking for is authorization to start researching this,
Oh,
because I do have to approach city council to get permission to do the same thing.
okay,
So I'm trying to get my ducks in a row.
okay, get your ducks in a row. That would give me time to, what?
Nothing. I was just chuckling at the slang.
Yeah, I'm good then.
Okay. Yeah, go.
What are you thinking on it, John?
What am I thinking on it?
Yeah, what are you,
I think a lot of stuff. And I just want to keep, until I know more, before I want to,
sure. What type of details would you like from me on it?
I think you've given me enough detail.
Okay.
I don't need any information from you.
Okay.
I think I'm good, but I
Sure.
just want to check something else.
Yeah, so motion to proceed.
You can't just do that.
Well, he wants to look into it. So as far as we're concerned, keep digging
Well,
into it.
you have to ask us.
Okay. We're not spending money,
Yeah,
so,
so basically you're
All
just asking to move forward with getting information.
That's all I'm asking.
Yeah,
is to be able to look for something up to the 400,000 mark. And obviously I'm anticipating less. Problem is, we don't know until we get to that point. We know that the striker power load and cot system, she said that she would secure that price for 1 year. So she has, it'll be that or.
so 1 month won't hold you up to.
Yeah, 1 month will not do anything. I just need the approval to go forward in it because it doesn't do me any good to go to the city and ask for the same thing if I can't get it through here.
Okay. All those in favor of Fire Chief Rob Edmonds, pursuing,
Do we have a motion here?
we don't have motion. I was gonna make one.
Okay,
So, I'll make the motion for Fire Chief Rob Edmonds, to pursue, purchase bids no larger than 400,000 in purchasing a new ambulance box style. Do I have support?
I'll support.
Thank you. I have support. All those in favor, say aye. All those not, say the same.
One other side note, it's a reimbursement request is what it would be to
Reimburse.
just pass through money. City secures it, pays for it, and then that county actually reimburses.
Okay,
basically we're one.
we're not laundering money.
Yeah,
Okay, so if you want to proceed with your number 2, the MFR course completion reimbursement request to township responder agencies.
Yep. So in January 2024, the Alpena City Fire Department offered a medical first responder, or an MFR course as it's known, open to area responder agencies for interested students. The initial education is the minimum level of formal certification required by the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to operate as a pre-hospital medical provider in Michigan. This course was 80 hours of lectures, practical skills, evaluation, and scenario-based learning over a 9-week period. I'm pleased to announce that on March 11, 2024, we had 20 students successfully complete and pass the course, making them eligible to test for Michigan licensure as an MFR. Of these 20 students, 10 are members of the Alpena County responder agencies. It is very promising to see the amount of interest in this course, as there is a huge void in emergency responders throughout the state of Michigan and nationally. In Michigan alone, there are over 1,000 EMS positions unfilled. This was the highest number of students we have hosted in an EMS course to date. And we usually do a medical first responder class every other year. We flip that with the fire academy so that people aren't enrolled in 2 courses at the same time. As well as we've done an MFR to EMT matriculation and an EMT course. So this was by far the best attended course that we've had. I have attached a list of students that are affiliated with Alpena County responder agencies that successfully completed this training. I'm requesting that these sponsoring departments be reimbursed for the cost of tuition and books for these students' successful attendance and course completion. This would be a huge financial relief to these community partners. I'm making this request on behalf of each of the partnering Alpena County responder agencies, as the ambulance fund is healthy enough to support this allowable reimbursement request to them. The cost of tuition and books was $775 per student. I believe there's 10 of them, so it essentially for the ambulance fund would be about $7,750 that could get reimbursed back to these responder agencies. I know under the fiscal policy, I believe directs them that they have to become state licensed and should be with the responder agency for a year. I can tell you in talking with the other fire chiefs, that's a burden on them. And it would definitely be appreciated if obviously the board would approve them to get reimbursed for these people up front. They've had to come up with it out of their budget, so some of these departments don't have budgets to $10,000 or $12,000. So huge hit for them. I told them that I would make the request on their behalf, so they didn't have to individually make the request. They would give you the supporting documents, and that's why we attached the 10 names there to the associating agencies that are requesting reimbursement.
Comments?
The question that I have, and I'm trying to find it, did we raise that to 750? Because I know it was,
We raised it up to $775, is what we did for tuition and books. I believe you guys, at one point, we had discussed that when we proposed the first amendment to the changes for the ambulance contract. But I don't know what your fiscal policy is right now as far as dollar amount that it reimburses up to.
This money would come where, out of the ambulance fund?
The ambulance fund.
Correct.
I guess if there's enough money there, that's all right.
I just want to make sure that that's what we have in our,
If I look in the policy under EMS training, it's down there. Actually, it's on page 4, I believe. Actually, the bottom page of page 3. Actually, it says the reimbursement for medical first responder and emergency medical technician education should be limited to $750 per student.
yeah.
So we wouldn't be able to reimburse the 775.
I'd say we stick to what we have for our policy or whatever.
Right.
I'll make a motion to reimburse the 750.
Per student.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioner LaHaye,
Yes.
Commissioner Kozlowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalone.
Yes.
What would you like as, because normally you guys want proof of payment. Do you want something from Hannah that they had paid us for that?
The treasurer's office is gonna ask for an invoice.
Okay. Each department? Or how would,
If you guys wanna consolidate that onto one invoice just from the city, I think that'd be the easiest.
because we can show you how they're all paid.
And put a breakdown. Yeah, that'd be great.
Hannah, so she can get it to you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, next on our agenda, our Emergency Management 911 Services Director, Kim Elke. With her monthly update.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Things are busy right now in our little corner of the world. First of all, I'll share our monthly statistics with you. So for the month of March, we had 748 911 calls. That is up 101 calls from the month before. We had 38 texts, which was almost doubled from February of 20. And then for our CAD entries, for March, we had 2,122, which was up over 200 from the month before. We are very busy this week and next week. Today, we had a mass casualty exercise with the hospital. So we spent the morning over working with the staff at the hospital on that. It went very well. Later this week, we have an exercise with one of our local industry partners. We're doing an event with them. And then we have another event with that same partner later this summer. Next week, we are hosting a 16-hour training the final training opportunity from the Homeland Security Grant.
Okay,
It is tactical emergency casualty care. It was a $6,000 class that Homeland Security paid for. And we have to provide food and they will reimburse us for the food expenses that we have. There'll be 12 hours of classroom time and 4 hours of clinical work in that class. And we also have some volunteers from the 13th year students from the high school. They're dual enrolled between the high school and college. We have a number of volunteers coming from that group of students that are going to volunteer to be patients that day.
well, that's,
Yeah, so we had a neat turn of events this morning with our drill with the hospital. Region 7 Homeland Security sent over their new assistant coordinator for the Healthcare Coalition. So we had an opportunity to meet her today, and the Healthcare Coalition actually has a trailer that is placed in Alpena County that could be deployed in the region. It's an alternate care center trailer, has a lot of supplies and whatnot in it. So we were able to take her out and show her where we have that trailer staged in case she ever needs to come over for anything with it. We showed her our assets out there. We also, because of the conversations this morning in the activities of the mass care drill, the mass casualty drill, we took her and showed her our morgue unit so that she's familiar with that asset over here. So we enjoyed spending the morning with her and showing her around. And she was excited to go back and tell the coordinator all the cool things she did and saw in Alpena County. We are all registered for the Great Lakes Homeland Security Conference. It's May 7th through 9th in Grand Rapids. And we're excited to be taking a number of people with us, including a couple commissioners, and Jennifer's attending with us as well. And Al and I will be attending, and Region 7 will be reimbursing us for all those, for the lodging, and they provided us a code for registration, so we didn't have to pay the $400 registration cost. So we're looking forward to that. And then finally, this week is dispatch week. So we started off yesterday. We have some activities and different things going on every day and different treats planned that we're bringing in for the staff. So if you have a few minutes after the meeting's done and you want to stop and say hi, there is bound to be somebody there regardless of what time we finish. And I'm sure that they would love to see you. I'm willing to answer any questions.
Okay.
any comments?
No.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up is Mr. Pfeiffer. He's our MAC administrator. Hello, young man. How are you?
Oh, not bad. Bill Pfeiffer on behalf of MIDC and as the MAC administrator. I've got 4 items on the agenda. So first one, the first quarter financial services report. So from 10/1 of 23 to 10/1 of 23, excuse me, to 12/31 of 23. We spent a total $236,004. The total grant amount or the total budgeted amount is $1,321,511. So we spent about 17.86% of the budget. If we were right on track, we'd be at 25%. Historically, the first quarter of the fiscal year, which for this grant runs 10/1 of the year through 9/30 the next year, we're normally low that first quarter. That's historically been the case, primarily because attorney billings trickle in the first quarter. And then generally the fourth quarter, the end of the year is where generally pick it up and get caught up. So I'm glad to say we're not over budget. What we have though, coming up this quarter, we're going to be substantially higher this quarter. And by this quarter, I mean 1/1 of 24 through 3/31 of 24, primarily due to the homicide case. And the bills that came in that were paid in March, there were higher than expected bills for the attorneys, higher than expected bills for the experts and investigators. But, we're not gonna be over budget, but we're gonna spend much more in the second quarter than we have historically. And we'll probably be over 50% total for the year, but I'm not anticipating that that's gonna cause us any problems at the end of the year. If it does, what happens is MIDC in the fourth quarter, if you're over budget, and you can justify being over budget, they will reimburse in the first payment of the next fiscal year any shortfall. And there is no cap on that. So, I mean, unless we spent $1 million over, I'm sure they probably wouldn't approve that. But if we're, 20, 30, 40 grand over, I don't see any problem with having us be reimbursed from the state. So that is item number 1. So if there's any questions about that, I'll answer them now, or I can just move on to 2.
Any comments?
I have no question.
Okay,
Okay, so 24 grant update. The state has approved our unexpended funds report for the last fiscal year. We spent not quite as much as we were budgeted, but we had unexpended funds at the end of the year of $21,809.78. That carries over to this fiscal year. And what happens is in one of our quarterly payments, they'll simply subtract the $21,309.78. We're a little bit better this past year in terms of spending the money we got. The first couple of years we were tended to underspend, but our spending was much closer to the actual budgeted amount and grant amount. We spent about 97% total of the money. Specifically 97.82%. One of the things that will happen, though, going forward next year is that total budgeted amount will go down because we won't have those extra funds that we had in this year's budget for the homicide trial. So that'll go down a little bit, but we didn't overspend, which is a good thing. I know I think the CPAs are doing an audit this week or last week. I sent Mary the information that she requested. So assuming if she has any questions or if there are any concerns that she'll get back with me. But we closed out the year spending almost all of our money, but not quite. That's all I have for FY24.
and I have a question, and there's no money in the line item or anything like that. I'm not aware of what it was, and I was curious. And I apologize if it's something that I should know. What's contracts for construction?
Those are if we did anything, for instance, when we first started the grant, we had some monies for construction primarily related to white noise machines and also setting aside some space both at the district court and the circuit court. So we just don't have any money in there this year. But if we had a project that we needed money for that involved construction, it just goes into that line item.
To that line item?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on item number 2? Okay, if you'd like to proceed, sir.
Okay, so FY25. So we have a grant application that's due on the 22nd, which is a week from today.
So,
There are 2 things with that. One is that MIDC is going to accept draft applications without formal approval of county commissions at this point, primarily due to there are 2 new standards that were approved, Standard 6 and Standard 7. There's been quite a few training sessions that have went on in the last month or 2, but quite frankly, there are some unanswered questions, and I'm not sure that MIDC even knows for sure how these standards are going to be implemented and how they're going to be tracked. The state statute indicates that once the standards are passed by Lara and once a local unit receives money for those, it has 6 months from the time it receives the funds to fully implement them. So we will not receive any monies technically for standards 6 and 7 until October 1st of 2024. So by April 1st of 2025, we'll have to fully have implemented a policy that's approved by MIDC and their state board for these 2 standards. So Standard 6 is a standard that sets caseload limits for each of the attorneys. In the public defender office, those are going to be a little bit easier to track because it sets a limit of 150 felonies and or 400 misdemeanors. The problem is the combination of two. Most of the defender offices, at least the smaller defender offices that are in rural counties like ours, don't really have attorneys that are specifically assigned to felonies and don't have attorneys that are specifically assigned to misdemeanors. So we're trying to figure out where that overlay is. One of the questions that was asked at one of the last training sessions is, well, if I'm an attorney at the public defender office and as of November 1st, I've been assigned my 151st felony case, what does that mean? Does that mean that I'm done for the year, that I just drop my salary and don't have to do any more cases? The specific question was, can I go to Aruba? I was in support of the request to go to Aruba. Question.
Why not?
Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do. That's what they're trying to figure out. Really for us here, I don't think we have to worry about it because our caseloads are still, although they've increased, we're still not concerned that anybody's gonna automatically jump right over that. But you know, they're gonna have to figure out how we track those, how we report them. The other issue is though, for any of the contract attorneys or the attorneys on the list, how they're gonna track per person's performance, not only in Alpena County, but in the other counties as well. And how you're going to figure in their private caseload. So for example, an individual like me who does cases all over, how are those going to be tracked into each county system? And how are they going to delegate the other work that I do in my private practice? How are they going to quantify that? And there's just no answer to the question yet. So much easier in the public defender offices because they're full-time public defenders and they're only assigned cases for that office, so much easier to track. A little bit more difficult for the assigned counsel list. So once again, that's going to be, I guess, figured out as we go here. The other thing was there was a study, it was called the RAND study that MIDC commissioned last year, or actually 2 years ago now. And those caseloads called for a significant downward departure from these caseloads. These are the American Bar Association caseloads. And there are a lot of folks that think that 150 felonies and or 400 misdemeanors is too much. One of the problems with that is in light of the fact that law school admissions are down, new attorneys are down, the bar itself is aging, especially here in our county. We've got quite a few people that are have either retired or on their way to retirement. The question becomes who is going to fill these spots or these slots if they lower that caseload. And if they lower that caseload, it's also going to require additional monies be expended on the state budget. And so it's a dollar and cents thing as well. But that, you know, hopefully that will be ferreted out in the next year or two as well. But if they actually adopt the RAND case study statistics as far as the caseloads, those caseloads are going to go down, which means we technically need more attorneys. The problem is we don't have more attorneys. We don't have any new attorneys coming to town. It's very hard to recruit attorneys here unless they're from here. And so it might cause a problem for our system if they do lower those in terms of how we're going to have enough attorneys to actually handle the cases. That's not something that's a concern for this year, but it could be a concern in the next few years. They also passed Standard 7. Standard 7 establishes a minimum standard for each of the attorneys and says you have to be qualified to take certain cases. So for instance, misdemeanor cases, that's a simple one. You can take 93-day misdemeanors right coming out of law school. But for 1 year misdemeanors, they want you to have a certain number of 93-day misdemeanors before you're qualified to do that. Low severity felonies are identified as felonies carrying a penalty of 5 years or less. You can't handle any felony cases until you've handled a certain number of misdemeanor cases, including having a certain number of those cases that have went to a jury verdict, so to a jury trial. Then there's high severity felonies, which is another level. You got to have a certain number of low severity felonies before you can go to the high severity felonies. And then there are life offense felonies, and you can't go to the life offense felonies unless you've had 7 jury trials that were high severity felonies that went to a verdict. So fortunately for us at the Public Defender Office, all of the attorneys, well, not all attorneys, all the attorneys but one are life offense qualified. On our private list, we have a couple that are life offense qualified, a couple that are not. But that certainly could create, an issue of whether we have enough qualified attorneys to handle those more serious cases. And once again, that standard 7 is also being kind of figured out right now, how we're going to track that. How we're going to, quantify that in terms of those total number of cases. There is no limit on how many life offense cases you can have, which doesn't really make sense. And then even from the felony standpoint, not all felonies are the same. You have high severity felonies, low severity felonies. So 150 low severity felonies isn't going to take the same amount of time work-wise as 150 high severity felonies. So there's still some tracking as how that's going to get done. Standard 7 also requires the local unit to establish what's commonly referred to as some type of attorney review board, which is going to have the attorneys essentially critique each other. You're also going to have the judges that are going to be part of that. And it's basically going to be something that has to be done at least yearly. There's some talk that they want to try to do it quarterly. Quarterly might be too ambitious right away, but it's going to be a system where, for instance, for the attorneys on the list, I would essentially critique them and tell the state whether they're doing a good job or not. Obviously, there's some of that can become personal opinions, so we want to try to level that out of there so that it's not me saying this particular attorney is really good because I like that attorney, or me saying this attorney is not very good because I don't like that attorney.
Like a criteria.
Yeah. So, they're trying to figure that out. The public defender office, the chief defender would, monitor the attorneys in their office. But that's still got to get figured out how we're going to do that and whether they're going to let each system locally develop their own questionnaires, their own way of doing it, or is there going to be a state standard that says it absolutely has to be done this way? So that's still kind of up in the air as well. As far as the grant application itself, because we don't have those additional funds or won't need those additional funds for the homicide trial that's now been completed, our total grant amount is probably going to go down a fair chunk. In terms of planning for the public defender office where it's at, they are attempting to add either a full-time, if possible, or part-time for sure investigator. The state of Michigan has already said that they would approve at least a part-time investigator. They're hoping that they will improve a full-time. The budget for the public defender office includes money from Alpena County, Montmorency County, and Oscoda County. So each one of those, is part of that total budget. And so there's probably enough work to have a full-time investigator. Just got to justify those numbers to the state for them to do that. There is still an attorney position in the Oscoda office that's unfilled. There's an attorney position in the Alpena office that's unfilled. So those requests will go in again to continue those positions. But the state's probably going to say, if you're able to handle all the cases, you're not over your caseload limit, and you haven't been able to fill those positions, they might pull that money back. If they pull that money back, it won't affect the local share of the grant. So our local share last year was somewhere 164,000 and change. It will be somewhere in that general vicinity again this year as well. So should still right around that same amount. I think the lowest it's been is 161. Highest it's been is the 164. So it'll be somewhere in that range. But if our budgeted amount, our approved grant amount goes down, it won't really make that 164 go down. That 164 will still be there. It'll just be less money that we get reimbursed from the state. And these are monies that we don't get to keep, meaning if we don't spend them at the end of the year, they flow into the next year's grant. So the county's got to spend that 164 no matter what. But if we don't spend the total amount, the balance that's left goes back to the state. So that is an update on FY25.
Do we have an area facilitator to bring us new lawyers? Or is that just like per practice? Like each practice tries to recruit on their own?
Yeah, what's happening right now is they do have a mentorship program at the University of Michigan. And actually, in our grant this past year, Julie Miller put some money in there for 2 summer interns. And so we've got 2 summer interns that are going to come to the Defender office. One of who is going to be taking the bar exam in July and who has indicated an interest in remaining in the area and also taking that position if they offer it to her. But yeah, that's a real problem, is trying to get, have resources to find people that will come up here and do it. I mean, the public defender has had a standing invitation for employment on the MIDC website, the Criminal Defense Attorney of Michigan website, the Thomas M. Cooley website, the Wayne University Law, the Michigan State University School of Law. So they've kept it on there. They just haven't been able to really, haven't really been able to cultivate that. But U of M has really taken an active approach of trying to match those interns up with folks that are looking for them. The problem is that all of the public defender offices in Michigan are looking for interns. And so getting somebody up in Northeast Michigan is difficult unless you've got some connection to here or, you just want to go north where the pace is a little slower. But there are 2 that are coming this summer and hopefully those are going to pan out. One of them has already, like I said, indicated an interest to stay here. In fact, that person's significant other, who is an attorney, just took a job with, not Gillard Bauer Flora anymore, it's Bauer, Flora and Voida. So the chance of that particular intern staying is a lot greater in light of the other individual that she's involved with having gotten a job at a law firm here. So, but yeah, it's really hard to recruit. One of the, I know that they did one last year up in the UP in Marquette, kind of like a job fair where the our MIDC coordinator, not current, but our now retired MIDC coordinator, Barb Klemaszewski, tried to invite people for pizza and beer. I said I would come to have pizza and beer, but they told me, they didn't invite me. So they thought have too much beer, too much pizza. But yeah, there's really a concerted effort to try to get new people. But the main problem is that they just don't have as many law school graduates anymore. I mean, people just aren't going to law school anymore because it's just too expensive in terms of loans and things of that nature. So the law school applications are really down. Not only applications, but also graduates.
I think the average is about $500,000 to $600,000 in student loans if they don't have any scholarships or anything like that.
That's expensive.
For a lawyer. Excuse me.
But that hopefully the couple of folks from U of M that are coming up, those will pan out. And that particular program through U of M has been successful placing candidates around the state. So
Okay.
The problem is everybody's going after it and trying to use it. It's kind of dried up in terms of the available applicants.
Okay.
How was the individuals that are working with the public defender's office? How is that? I mean, do they have enough people? You said they're gonna get the interns. I guess I never really thought to ask is, are we keeping the same, have we had the same people there? Or are they kind of like revolving doors? If a better offer comes up, they're gone?
No, we've had the same people. The problem that's gonna rear its ugly head in a couple of years here will be that you have Rick Steiger, Dennis Grinkovich and Ron Bayat. Dennis is, I believe, 71. Mr. Bayat has already indicated that he is going to retire December 31st of 2025. And Mr. Steiger is talking about retiring in about 2.5 years himself. So the bigger issue would be if we don't cultivate some of these interns, get some people in at the entry-level positions, get them trained within a couple of years, there'll be a big problem.
So who's at the public defender's office? Are those 3?
Rick Steiger, Julie Miller, Dennis Grinkovich, Ron Bayat. We do have Michaela Lopez, who is over in Oscoda now, who is now up and running.
Okay.
But
Yes, I didn't realize that. I knew Julie and Rod were over there. I didn't realize the other two were working in the public defender's office. And again, you said that, that if you're at that age where, if we don't get somebody on the other end that could be here a while, because again, obviously, they're not gonna pack up and move someplace. They've been here forever, so.
Well, and someone to pass down the wisdom. I mean, that kind of years of experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that, like I said, some of these interns work out in the next, like the two we've got this summer. We've got another candidate over in Oscoda that is supposed to start not October 1st, excuse me, August 1st. But you never know for sure until you get them here and they, whether they're gonna stay or not, or whether they got one eye on the door, so. But yeah, in a couple of years, we're gonna have some problems if we don't find some quality candidates to read that.
You mentioned, and I guess I didn't put that together either. So I knew we were Montmorency and Alpena, but you said Oscoda. Is it Oscoda County or is it Oscoda?
Oscoda County, so Mayo,
Yeah.
yeah,
So the public defender's office the public defender's office here is actually going to those Montmorency and Oscoda County to deal with clients.
they are. And like I said, we've got one full-time attorney there now that's been there for about 4 months or so. And hopefully the second one will pan out later this summer. But yeah, it's been somewhat burdensome for them because it's not a short trip. And you've got one particular judge over there that does not like to do Zoom. And so it's been requiring travel sometimes when there's only 1 or 2 cases on the docket, which, can take up, a good chunk of the morning or a good chunk of the afternoon. So, if that office doesn't get fully staffed, I'm not sure what'll happen. It may have to consider whether they want to continue to do Oscoda or not.
So how recently did we join with Oscoda County?
We took over Oscoda last year on an emergency basis, right around February 15th. And that was due to a couple different things. They had one attorney who became ill medically and so had to be medically retired. A second attorney who just said, I'm retiring. Guy was in his mid-60s and just decided that he was gonna not do it anymore. And then the third attorney who said, hey, I can still do it, but I'm not gonna pick up any more cases than I'm already doing. So it required some reshuffling. Barb came in on behalf of the state and said, hey, can you guys kind of see this through? And so it's been seen through so far. I'm handling some of the conflict cases over there, but I told MIDC I can't commit to being over there on a regular basis. And so hopefully, like I said, we've got one full-time attorney there now and the second one coming on board. Obviously, if the second one comes on board, it will relieve anybody from here having to go over there on a regular basis. But yeah, it's been difficult adding that on.
How does that impact the overall grant for us? Does it have any significant bearing on it or?
It does not. I mean, our local amount is still going to be our local amount no matter what. Each of the other counties have their local amount as well.
Well, with the public defenders, I guess it wouldn't change because we still have the same amount of public defenders.
Correct.
That's not going to increase because of adding another county.
It will not, but the way it's tracked now with the state is that, a certain percentage of their salary is paid by Alpena County, smaller percentage by Oscoda, and then a smaller percentage by Montmorency.
Okay.
But it doesn't affect the total amount of monies, but.
Because Oscoda County has a grant through the state and then that is divvied up how they have to divvy it out.
Right. There is one thing along those lines. I'm glad you asked that question. So tell you guys this. There had been a request of the state level MIDC of whether Alpena County might want to consider, not this year because we're already in another planning year, in forward, if we're going to have this multi-county public defender office, if Alpena County would want to be the one recipient of all the grant monies and have them all run through here. And I don't know if Oscoda or Montmorency would agree to that, but Alpena County would have to agree to it to begin with, and then Montmorency and Oscoda would have to also agree to do it that way.
So then, because you're the MAC, MIDC, what is it, what's your title?
MAC administrator.
MAC administrator.
So the MAC administrator. So do you do anything then with the Oscoda County?
I'm the MAC administrator for Oscoda County, for Montmorency County, and for Alpena County.
I know you were Montmorency and Alpena.
Yeah.
You are the MAC administrator for Oscoda County before they,
I was not before. I am now, and I'm really hoping and praying that they find somebody else to do it.
yeah.
But I'm doing it right now basically as a, just to stay in the good graces with the state. But yeah, they need to find somebody else to do it. It's just, there's no attorneys there. And the attorneys they had there, one, like say, one medically retired, the other one just decided to retire. So same way there, they just don't have anybody moving into town. Other than their judge and their prosecutor, they don't have another licensed attorney in Oscoda County.
Yeah, that's kind of like desolate over there. How many lawyers are gonna say, hey, I think I need to go
Yeah.
work out of Oscoda County?
Yeah, so the folks that are covering the case right now, I mean, we're covering them from here. We've got a guy from Crawford County, from Grayling, that'll do a few cases. We've got a guy from Standish, Aranac County, that'll do a few.
Who's that?
Dwayne Hadley. He's been picking up a few here and there. We've got a couple guys from Iosco County, Tawas, that are picking up a few here and there. But, everybody's kind of trying to pitch in and do that, but at some point in time, it becomes counterproductive driving to Mile for
Yeah.
a drunk driving case, for
But
instance.
to leave here, you're probably almost an hour and 15 minutes or so just to get there.
Yep. Yeah, and then, obviously in the wintertime, you add
45-minute drive.
time on for the road, so.
Yeah, and then in the wintertime, you got bad weather. That's even worse.
Yeah, so there might be a request, like I say, not this year, but next year, as to whether Alpena County would want to be.
So what benefit is that to then us?
There really isn't any benefit to the county. I mean, it's really a state.
If you're and again, if you were the MAC administrator, is that the MAC well, what would change for you then?
Nothing at this point. Yeah, I mean, the only thing it would, from an accounting standpoint, it might be a little easier because you'd only be, having one quarterly report instead of having a quarterly report for each of the counties.
Yeah.
So administratively, it would cut down the workload a little bit. But there's no benefit to Alpena County, and there's really no detriment to the other counties to let it be done that way. It's just, other than just feeling like you want to have control over your own monies.
Any other comments? Thank you very much, sir.
Just one other item real quick.
Oh, yeah, go for
it. So Regional Grant Director Barb Klimaszewski retired, effective, I think it was February 1st or sometime in early February. Matt Lozen, who was a MAC manager in Sanilac County, Tuscola County, in the Thumb area, has now been hired and has replaced Barb. He was up here last Wednesday, I believe. I'm not sure who Rick and Julie introduced him to. I know they introduced him to Judge Black, but I don't know if they got around to anybody on the commission at all. But he will plan on coming. He's kind of trying to get his bearings as well because he started right during this grant process. And so he's trying to figure out his changing role. But he will be up here probably sometime in the summer. And so I will bring him to one of the committee meetings during that and introduce him and, just so you guys, can put a name and a face.
I know Barb,
Appreciate that.
beginning we dealt, it seems like every month we were dealing with her. So,
Yeah, so Matt's got to get, he's got to get up to speed, got to get it like under him and then, figure out, how he can get around to all of the counties, so. So unless there's any other questions, that's all I have for this evening or early afternoon.
Thank you very much,
All
sir.
right, perfect, thanks.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is me. Um, the Animal Control Ad Hoc Committee recommendation. So action item number one, the committee recommends approval of the Animal Control Ad Hoc Committee's request regarding management operations at the Alpena County Animal Control Shelter. Continue staffing county employees, including a shelter manager with supervisory responsibilities, maintaining under the Alpena County Sheriff as presented. Does anybody have any questions about that? I will do my best to answer. Anybody but Commissioner Kozlowski. No, I'm just kidding. If you might be able to shed a little more light on this, Commissioner Kozlowski.
Just basically what I kind of told you that, yeah, the sheriff is looking to tweak the job descriptions for the shelter manager and then animal control and kind of make sure that those kind of work together and then take responsibility of the animal control under the sheriff's department.
Well, and as I understand it, it was more so that like Deputy Reed gets to do like truly what the job entails to be out on the road and patrol and handle the animals. And then the shelter manager is more like, okay, that's like their job to run the shelter, as I understand it. Is that correct?
You have one person at the shelter? Is that the?
I'm so
Well,
sorry.
they have, well, it depends on what day you ask. But they're supposed to have 3 technicians, if you will, animal techs or whatever they're called.
Yeah,
Technicians.
apparently they were budgeted for one full-time and one part-time.
Well, no, I know.
Tech.
And up until this point.
Yep,
This year, we budgeted for 1 shelter manager and 1 tech.
Yes.
In the past, they've been using the 3-ish,
Mhm.
3 to 5 to 3 to 8, whatever it works out that week.
That's gonna stay the same then, one manager.
And yeah, well, no, it'll be, yeah, the position will be 1 shelter manager and then 1 tech.
Okay.
From what has been proposed and what we budgeted for.
That's what we approved before then.
Yeah.
Correct.
And the intent is to be able to let the shelter manager manage the shelter and have animal control dedicate her time to dealing with the cases.
Okay,
What
so,
do we need to do with that then?
so I'd be looking for a motion to recommend approval. I can read it, of the Animal Control Ad Hoc Committee request regarding management operations at the Alpena County Animal Control Shelter to continue staffing county employees, including a shelter manager with supervisory responsibilities maintaining under the Alpena County Sheriff. Can I get a motion?
Support that. Oh,
Okay, I make the motion and Commissioner LaHaye supported. Okay, so, any comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor say nay. Passed.
Did you say anything? I didn't hear you say one.
Aye. You didn't? I know, I'm kind of quiet today. So number 2, this speaks to court funding. Has everyone had a moment to read the memorandum that was attached to the minutes for this meeting? So as far as I understand it, this seems more informational from Thomas B. Boyd, the state court administrator, and this is just speaking to the sunset. So the MCL 769.1K, it currently allows courts to impose costs in criminal cases that are reasonably related to the actual costs incurred by the court. But this authority will sunset on May 1st, 2024. Now, House Bill 5392 is seeking to extend the sunset to December 31st, 2026, but it is not anticipated that this bill will pass before it sunsets on May 1st, 2024. So without that in place, the courts do not have the authority to impose court costs, including but not limited to salaries and benefits for court personnel, goods and services necessary for the operation of the court, and necessary expenses for the operation and maintenance of court buildings and facilities. So this is just warning us to begin preparing for implementation of this change. And, we'll need to discuss potential financial impacts with our funding units. Any comments?
Anybody have any idea what it's gonna cost?
I don't.
I think, was this something that Carrie,
This was given to me by Judge Black.
he gave you this?
Yes.
I thought Carrie mentioned or brought,
She mentioned it about a month ago that she found something and sent it to us just to put it on our radar.
Right. I think it's just to put it on our radar.
Carrie's on right now.
Oh, is she? Oh. Any commentary, Carrie?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So what this is we're no longer able to charge court costs for each criminal case, but right now it's about $700 per criminal case for court costs that come back to the county. We can't do that anymore. So it's not like money that we have to come up with to pay the courts. It's just we won't be able to charge that revenue anymore, about $700 per case. So
So
we're
we're
gonna
gonna-
lose that revenue as of May 1st.
so as of May 1st, because that's literally only in a couple of weeks.
Couple weeks, yes.
So we lose that revenue and until they put something in place. So if you got a case coming up, you might be good to go because you don't have to cover the cost.
Well, if the case is coming, it's usually assessed through fines and costs to the defendant after he's found guilty or he or she's found guilty. So we won't be able to do that anymore. So we won't be able to collect that $700 as through the court fines and costs for each criminal case.
Which could impact the revenues, which could impact.
It's gonna be a big loss of revenue for us here. Hopefully that other bill extends the deadline to 2026, but it's not gonna do it by May 1st. So we are gonna lose some money in revenues because of this.
Carrie, do you know for the House Bill 5392 seeking to extend it, do you know if there's wording in there that would be retroactive for pay if it does get extended to 2026?
I don't know. I didn't read the
Yeah.
entire bill, but
Okay.
I'm gonna say
It's big.
I'm not sure if they would make it retroactive or not. In my opinion, the Supreme Court is actually trying to eliminate the county's involvement with the court, like the clerk's office. There's a whole big legislation on that going on right now that the Clerks Association is fighting because the Supreme Court kind of wants control over that and they want to assess the costs for themselves, basically. So they're trying to eliminate the clerk's responsibilities and role within the courts. And I personally think this is just step one. They don't call it that, but that's just where they're headed for that. But the county still has to fund the courts through the other statutes, so. And as of right now, we're not able to charge that $700, but our roles and responsibilities will remain the same to the courts until whenever they say that it doesn't.
So keep doing the same thing we're doing, except you can't get reimbursed.
Absolutely. You're not able to charge that $700 to reimburse like clerk's wages, materials, time, all of those things for the courts, but we still have to take the filings, file the filings, spend the time in court, maintain the files and all of those types of things.
Well, that's gonna be a big loss.
Oh.
And unfortunately, I don't really have any ideas at this time to regain that kind of revenue with the courts. But the Clerks Association is fighting that. And then hopefully this bill passes pretty quickly, but I'm not sure if it will.
Anything more for Carrie?
I'm all set.
Thank you so much, Carrie.
Sure.
Okay, next we have the ambulance fund monthly report. To receive and file. Has everybody had a chance to look over that that's attached? Any commentary? I always look to my left
Bill might have something.
Bill might have
No, I have no comment on it.
no comment.
I think it's all right.
Okay, I'll be looking for, I'll make a motion to receive and file the ambulance fund monthly report.
I'll support it, or John can support it, doesn't matter.
A support by Commissioner LaHaye. Okay, next, so the Veterans Affairs Office monthly report, has everyone had a chance to look over that? Okay, I didn't have any commentary.
Nope.
None for me as well. I'll make a motion to receive and file the Veterans Affairs Office monthly report, supported by Commissioner Kozlowski. Okay, it's open for any other discussion? Any other discussion? Okay, so discussion closed. Our next Courts and Public Safety Committee meeting will be on Monday, May 20th, 2024 at 4:00 in the afternoon in the Howard Mail Conference Room, also with Zoom availability. Looking for a motion for adjournment,
I'll make the motion.
supported by John, Commissioner Kozlowski, motion made by Commissioner LaHaye. Thank you, everybody.